Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going to explore the big questions, such as, can we prolong our lives beyond biological death and still retain our humanity? Hopefully we'll find out via the 1984 Ozploitation film, Death Warmed Up. For more deep and informative dives into cutting-edge science, subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications, my friend. Let's get to it. We open on a field and observe some young twat running for purposes unknown. But he's getting at it regardless. He enters a hospital and is recognized as Michael, son of the highly revered award-winning Dr. Tucker. Despite the clear signage, he makes his way to his father's office and witnesses an argument between him and Dr. Howell about the efficacy of a new life-enhancing procedure Howell has been testing. It's promising but unstable. Despite this, Howell wants to begin human testing immediately. Michael learns a few things about masculinity as Howell physically dominates his father by tossing him around the room.
You're all sweaty. Let's get you cleaned up.
And then acting as a doting father to his enemy's son. He stands outside the shower room as Michael's body is gently kissed by the playful bubbles of the soap suds. He then creeps on him in full business attire and gives him a little shot to the ass before carrying him off for unknown experimentation. Very soon thereafter, Howell gives him a ride home and he sits in the back, behaving like a good boy. At home, Dr. Tucker sees a broadcast interview in which Dr. Howell talks about his pioneering research and the need to take clinical risks to achieve progress, which gets Tucker all riled up. A malady his lady attempts to cure him of. But while this is happening upstairs, Michael is heading in the back with his sawed-off shotgun. He waltzes in and, with no explanation whatsoever, ceremoniously kills his father and then metaphorically destroys his mother's womb before making a final statement about the home's decor, because this is a movie with layers. When we see him next, he's being tossed into a piss-stained padded room like yesterday's trash. We learn from an info card that he spends the next 7 years in this asylum, while Dr. Howell enjoys his freedom by perfecting his techniques on an isolated island. Now, performing his operations on human patients, we delight in the sights and sounds and inadvertent squirts so common to brain surgery, as his crew of anti-maskers fail to save the patient he butchers. And then we transition to now. Again, where Michael and a close group of his friends are enjoying an intimate ferry ride. The ferryman doesn't get much business now that the island he ferries to is opened a psychiatric hospital. It sort of brings down the vibe of the island. While Lucas and Jeannie enjoy their bathing suit time, we see they're being observed by a couple of perverted sicko orderlies on their way to the hospital. As Michael and Sandy talk, we learn that they have plans to visit some spooky and dangerous World War II bunkers on the island, and they all know about it except Jeannie. But he's also open about his desire to get a crack at Dr. Howell to enact a plan for a revenge killing. Then the first mate wanders up to have a bit of a look-see at the automobile shenanigans, ending their fun.
What's happening? Got a bit of a pervert.
Oh yeah, like you and everyone else on the ship so far? The captain, upset that playtime's now over, tells him not to go back onto the deck, and then he complains of a fairly severe internal burning, which leads to some fairly severe foaming at the mouth. Then Lucas and Michael decide to go check out the van riding with them, and they take a piss on it for some reason. The two mutants inside don't take kindly to this, and it erupts into a full-on battle. The boys manage to come out on top and then joyfully drive off onto the island to go cruising the picturesque countryside. As they do so, Michael is overcome with thoughts of vengeance, but is interrupted when Jeannie hears a strange noise and insists there's something out there. They don't make it totally clear exactly what she's supposed to be referring to here, but it could be that the two pigs in the van do circle around and try to run them off the road. But again, they get the short end of the stick. Soon the crew is rolling through the local community where the men have taken to wearing harnesses around their junk, and Michael has a chance sighting of Dr. Howell that gets his blood boiling. Inside, we see that Howell lives like a king here, making everyone trip over themselves to serve him, and then leaving abruptly while the proprietor basks in the afterglow. Meanwhile, our gang has made it to the beach, where they've taken to some playful frolicking. Jeannie has been brought in on the secret about the tunnels, and she reluctantly agrees to go along with the plan. Sandy gets caught up in the romance of the scene and coyly suggests that she and Michael find the opportunity for some alone time that evening, as his budgie smugglers really struggle to get the job done. At the hospital, the first mate is leered at by the nurses as he suffers an immense headache. He dirties up the couch real good, and then Howell arrives to provide some instruction. They cart him off, but he begs for no more treatment. He wants the sweet release of a final death without revival, and his wish is ultimately granted. Elsewhere on the island, our gang arrives at the bunkers they came for and proceed to engage in some sweet historical exploration. They head in somewhat hesitantly and giggle their way down the echoey halls. In their enthusiasm to explore, the girls become separated, but eventually find a light source. Hearing some strange noises, they assume the boys are in the midst of an epic prank, but it turns out this is just a trash chute for medical garbage. They take off running, meeting the lads along the way, and they're all pursued by motorcycle doctors. They get all turned around as they're run off at various points by the bikers, who mostly just startle them as they zoom by repeatedly. Except for Jeannie, that is. She gets her shit rocked in a final pass by. They manage to find a way out, but Lucas decides that retreat is now unacceptable. He circles back and sets up a booby trap that results in one of the bikers taking a length of rebar through the torso. As they then zoom across the countryside, Sandy is concerned about the extent of Jeannie's injuries and tries to convince Michael to drive them to the hospital. But since that is the source of all their current problems, he declines to do so. And also, through this whole conversation, Sandy sends a bit of a mixed message about how bad this all is.
I can't stop it bleeding! She's dying. You're okay, Jeannie. She's dying, Michael! Don't you understand?
Back at the hospital, Dr. Howell learns of the intrusion and damage, and then storms off while his contemptible mutants are disposed of. Rightly wanting to continue to live, Spider declines to take his treatment, and then heads to the steam station where he kills a guard, and then lets out the rest of his kind.
I want you to do a job for me.
Guys, wait up, I didn't say what it was! Meanwhile, the kids find a pub and get on the horn with the Institute, hoping to find someone who can send them some assistance. But in a show of true one-upmanship, they're informed by the administrator that they have their own problems right now, having just suffered a breakout of psycho patients. They give their location anyway while the barkeep tries to convince them that it's time to just get the hell out of there. When the lights go out, he tells them to group up since this has apparently happened before. Sandy's already thinking in those terms and locks Jeannie in the car for safety while she goes to check in with the boys. But the psychos are already in town now and busting into whatever they can find that seems worth busting. However, their attack stops as suddenly as it started, as they seem to have turned their attention to the car. Thinking the coast may be clear, the barkeep heads out to see if his willingness to serve earns him a few brownie points. But it does not. They gain access to the bar and the car right as the medical personnel show up and begin to restore order. In the process of doing this, our gang is all packed up and carted off. Their bondage, however, is short-lived, as back at the hospital parking garage, the nurses have been overtaken, allowing them to slip by. They proceed down the halls as bedlam erupts all around them. When they find a relatively safe spot, Michael slips down a hallway, creeping like a total badass before getting knocked the F out. With Jeannie totally freaking out about her head injury, they panic and inject her with a huge amount of an unknown drug, hoping that it works to do something. Then they leave her in a storeroom for safety so they can address the matter of the intruding mutants. However, she quickly realizes that she's not alone, as a shy psychopath quietly emerges from the shadows. She manages to set him on fire, much to her initial benefit, but the overall cost proves to be greater than desired as she also catches a light. We then find Sandy and Lucas proceeding carefully down a hallway of horrors, like they're in a haunted house. Here, they have not even a moment to doubt themselves as they're confronted with the urgent task of confiscating weapons and fighting their way down the halls. This whole time, we see Howell's been busy with more of his surgeries. He's been trying to figure out what's been going wrong as his patients tend to wind up with stones inside their brains. When he comes out from this fresh failure, he finds Michael waiting patiently outside his OR. Howell slaps him around a bit and begins to take him on a tour of the progress he's made with his work. His hubris prevents him from believing he could come to be harmed, since he's so important to the process unfolding around them. He attempts to regain Michael's trust, but it's just too creepy. So then Michael, in the process of violently trying to prove to him that he's not a murderer, stabs him repeatedly until dead. Spider then returns, his motivations still unclear, and plants an axe firmly in Lucas's abdomen. Michael arrives, drops a single tear for his fallen friend, and then smiles as he slinks away, thinking about the pleasures of his future revenge. They drive off in disbelief, wondering what was that all for? And the truth is, we don't know. And then Michael, enamored with bloodlust in this new open sandbox world of mutant violence and chaos, exits the car to explore a scene of destruction despite Sandy's desire to just ride on to safety. He clearly should have listened to her as he ends up being randomly killed when a live wire falls on him, robbing him of the well-deserved vengeance he sought, and then Sandy just runs off into the night. I have a website set up where you can support the channel through donations or merch. I'd like to take a moment to give a huge thanks to my donors memorialized in the Hall of Headshots. Well, this was art. I'm not really sure what more there is to say about it. Did we learn anything? How about the nature of the human condition? How about man's existential dread derived from feelings of worthlessness in the face of his own mortality? Perhaps these things and more. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.